Welcome to the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I am Dustin Pickering, and today we have Melissa Chappell. We're going to discuss the difficulties of being a self-honest artist, and to toss in a little extra spice for the program, we'll discuss Edna St. Vincent Millay. Melissa has some poems to read, so let's just kick it off right at the beginning here. So tell us, what is it about being an artist that makes it so difficult? The process of compiling a body of work based on your own impressions and experiences of life. What makes that special?
Oh my. Well, it's I think for me, what makes it what makes it so special is the opportunity to be so authentic with yourself, and that's what makes it the most difficult is reaching that authenticity. And I was thinking today it's kind of like swimming in the deep end of the pool, and being able to stay underwater for that long and reaching that level of authenticity and being that honest with yourself. And um and that's, it's hard to do, and at times it's very it's very difficult. And as a matter of fact, I was reflecting with someone the other day. You and I worked on a poem a while back called Famine of the Heart.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you remember that, but it
Hmm.
was late one night, and I'd written that poem, and you and I were working on it together. And I remember we were facing some difficult questions about humanity and
Hmm.
about ourselves. And I remember at one point I just kind of cried.
Hmm.
And and it's hard work being a poet. And
Hmm.
because you do have to face some difficult things about yourself and about humankind. And I have found that sometimes people don't want to read that. So,
Yeah, they don't. It's very tricky for even
yeah,
us as writers to face ourselves and our shadow and who we are, and to present that to people in a way that's so radical to what they're used to and what they're accustomed. And so I think that's one reason why a lot of times the arts kind of lose favor, especially when you have tyrants, dictating like what's going to be, and you have the artists who bravely challenge that. Artists and writers, especially, are very prominent in challenging tyranny, and that's one of the things that I think makes art special is that in self-reflecting and looking at yourself, you challenge yourself to step out of your own box, and when you look at yourself, you say, how could I face this? How can I let this happen to my fellow man? you know and and
exactly.
and so in that case, I mean, I know all of us have weak spots and weak zones, and that's one other thing we confront as artists is, would we, say for instance, during the Holocaust, would we stand up for the people who were suffering under the Holocaust? And
Right,
it's a very
right,
challenging question, and that poem was confronting that, if I remember,
right,
specifically that one, that was
right.
a very specific issue. And I think both of us learned quite a bit in helping put that together, that poem. So I think it was a very positive experience for the two of us both together, and me
Right.
editing that poem and saying, I remember all I really did was look at it and say, can you maybe make this a little more to where it's reflecting on a personal level, you know, how you would be a participant in a certain way to this bloodshed and this suffering, and how you would
Right.
relate to that. So that was a
Right.
really powerful poem.
Yeah, and it was a hard question. It was a hard question. But and I think another challenge for me personally is that I write in the genre of just not hardcore, of course, but just mild eroticism.
Hmm.
Um and that's got me into a lot of trouble.
I
and
bet. An honest
and
eroticism.
because
Right.
yeah, and because quite often I'll write about God and eroticism, and in the same poem,
Hmm.
and that gets me into a lot of trouble. and, and people just don't want to deal with that. Um, and I've tried to think of the different reasons why, and it's I've come up with several reasons, and I think part of it is because I think one of the simpler reasons is because I think people were just raised not to talk about that. And I think kind of tied into that is, a feeling of that they should be ashamed of, that their sexuality and that part of themselves. And I think that because of that, they have a difficult time um understanding understanding how God relates to eroticism. In reality, I'm somewhat of a theologian,
Hmm.
and my understanding is that God actually is the author of eroticism, and
You know,
so
right.
you know so I I have some difficulty.
I think
I
we
don't
could
have the
distinguish
difficulty that
between like a pornographic view of human sexuality versus an erotic. On an erotic is a very intimate and emotional take
right.
on human sexuality, whereas pornography is like
Mhm.
exploited and exhibitionist and degrading in a sense for people to look at. You know,
Right.
those are the two contrasting ways of handling sexuality. You could either be, in line with looking at it as a very spiritual, value, or you could and see it as, an act that is intended for procreation, or that was one of the possible outcomes of it is more life, more creative capacity, more potential for humanity. Or you could
Right.
see it as something that, is degrading and gross and the more animalistic of it. And I don't know, people
Yeah,
probably. Hmm? Go ahead.
something very superficial,
Hmm.
and I was actually looking for a poem
Okay.
that I had in mind, that one of my favorite little poems is that kind of ties God in with the erotic.
Okay,
It's
if you want
called
to read that.
Gloria,
Hmm.
and the title actually refers to the Gloria Patri that we say in church. Uh, Here's the poem, Gloria. Your white linen sheets, paraments tangled around us, your arm wrapped beneath my breast, muscled leg resting on mine, slick with the oil of almonds, breath warm, steady on my neck, lips fragrant with hyacinth. My heart is dusking, lavender and rose. Sleep falls over us, soft like down. We fit, two pieces of broken stone that found each other. Gloria Patri, now and ever shall be, world without end, as I fall away into you.
Hmm. I think that's very exalting of the sexual impulse. I can say in the United States, we used to have some fairly strict ideas of what passed as art versus what passed as pornography in the courts, and that was gradually sort of moved and shifted to more, I guess you could say, permissive qualities. But over the years, over the last 100 years or so, it's been the case. That poem really restores. Um, it has a very sensible approach that's almost like Song of Songs, you know, you know, where he compares the, various, brings in various natural images and scents and, things like that into the piece. So it was very beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. So
Thank you.
another difficulty a lot of artists and creative minds face, I think, is we tend to come from a place of disadvantage, whether it's disability, marginalization of some kind, a lot of bad experiences and troubled youth. For instance, my own self, my own life, I was, I had some bad family background early on, but I was raised by a very loving, aunt and grandmother, and I was bullied quite a bit. I suffered from mental health problems. And so I think that enriches that experience of looking at truth. What do you think?
I think you're right. I myself, I have several experiences. I
Mhm.
was sexually assaulted twice, and I also have a long history of bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed not until I was 31, but I saw my first hallucination when I was 17, and so was left to, well, I didn't really try to make sense of episodes like that because I couldn't make sense of it, and so I just kind of blocked it out. But but those two assaults, yeah, they become a part of my hermeneutic.
Mhm.
When I write, and I'm, I mean, it's strange to say, something like this, but some people have said, "Gosh, Melissa, if you had to do it all over again, wouldn't you make it different?" And as horrific as those things were, I would have to say no,
Mhm.
because um they've made me who I am, and who I am is a person who's able to, as you talk about truth,
Mhm.
is able to write about my truth in a certain way that might reach other people in the way that they need to hear it. Or I don't know how to say that exactly,
Mhm.
but I tell a certain truth in a way that it needs to be told, that
Mhm.
only I can tell it from
Right.
my hermeneutic, from through my hermeneutical lens of being assaulted twice and of suffering with bipolar for all these years. I don't know if that makes sense or not,
No, it makes perfect
but
sense. I feel the same way because when you write, you're incorporating your language, your experience comes onto the paper in a way. I write a lot about grief. My grandmother on my mom's side was killed by a drunk driver when I was about 2 years old, and my whole family fell apart from then on. And I lost both parents. Mostly, they were not present in my life, and I felt very isolated and hurt by that. And I think that grief translates into my poetry, and
right,
it's tough to talk about, and it's tough to for it to but it deepens your soul in a way, if we can call it the soul, the inner life, um, and from a perspective of someone who is suffering from these problems and trying to make sense of them. You grasp harder and deeper at things, trying to understand not just your own experiences, but you're grasping the human life through your own experiences, I think. And I think that both of us have been doing that with our writing. And, you pursue it from a perspective of your own mind and lens, but ultimately what you're striving for is what is it that we all hold in common, and one of those things is what we call the human condition. We all live, we all die, we all breathe, we all suffer, we all face joys and tribulations and go through a lot of cycles of birth and rebirth.
right.
And yeah, so that's something I think that great poets manage to express in a profound way that touches people's hearts. Maybe they experience it on a deeper level, or maybe they just have a better grasp of language that they're able to sort of filter it in a way or play with it in a way that hits people at that time, and it remains eternal and it echoes throughout history. I think that's what poetry is.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I was just thinking that that kind of expresses a thought I had about Edna St. Vincent Millay today.
Hmm.
When I was thinking about what I would say about her, I was thinking about money. One of my brother, he I love him to death. He doesn't understand why I write because writing doesn't bring me any money. And
Right.
and so he says, "Why do you write when it doesn't bring you any money?" And I said, "It's I don't think about money when I write, Mark, because I just don't do it for the money. I do it because I have to. It's a part of who I am, and it's my art, and it's more than getting cash in hand or anything like that. And it's art. It's art. It's beyond anything material." And I was thinking about Edna St. Vincent Millay's poetry, and I'm sure she was very well known and as an award-winning poet. And but you read her poetry, and it's just so it's so beyond. Um, it's 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 I, I forgot how you described it. It's it reaches you so deeply right where you are because it's so authentic. She's she's so authentic, and that's one thing I like about her so much is that her language and the way she presents herself and the way she speaks about her experience is so
Hmm.
authentic and so human, and you can relate to her. And yet at the same time, um, there's something about the way she uses her language that's so transcendent,
Hmm.
you know.
Would
And
you like to share a poem that you think exemplifies
yeah,
that? You can hear one of her poetry.
yeah,
Talk a little
yeah,
bit
I
about it.
would.
That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, this is the one that I picked out to share.
Okay.
What lips my lips have kissed, and where and why, I have forgotten, and what arms have lain under my head till morning. But the rain is full of ghosts tonight that tap and sigh upon the glass and listen for reply. And in my heart there sits a quiet pain for unremembered lads that not again will turn to me at midnight with a cry. Thus in the winter stands the lonely tree, nor knows what birds have vanished one by one, yet knows its boughs more silent than before. I cannot say what loves have come and gone. I only know that summer sang in me a little while, that in me sings no more.
Hmm.
And
You know,
isn't it
that's
lovely?
it's very lyrical, but I think one of the things I get from that and hearing that is it's like a feeling of deep loneliness, and there's an uncertainty as to why it's there. Because I cannot name the loves and where my lips have been and all this. So it's not like I'm missing something. It's not about memory. I'm feeling lonely because it's just part of life. She describes the tree as
Right, right,
a tree.
right.
Enormously talent there, a giftedness that put that into words and the way that she did, where you see the
It
natural world.
is.
Hmm.
Right, right, right.
And it's
And
excellent language too. The use of language, it flows very well, and it has a rhythmic capacity to it that just kind of it's almost music. It's very musical.
it is. And there was let's see, there was another one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what was that one about the relevant?
If you're
It
watching this
is.
New York Parrot Literary Corner, I'm Dustin Pickering. We're talking with Melissa Chappell about Edna St. Vincent Millay. Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay. Here's one. It's called "I Think I Should Have Loved You Presently."
Mm-hmm.
I think I think I should have loved you presently, and given in earnest words I flung in jest, and lifted honest eyes for you to see, and caught your hand against my cheek and breast, and all my pretty follies flung aside, that won you to me, and beneath your gaze, naked of reticence and shorn of pride, spread like a chart my little wicked ways, I that had been to you, had you remained but one more waking from a recurrent dream, cherish no less the certain stakes I gained, and walk your memory's halls, austere, supreme, a ghost in marble of a girl you knew, who would have loved you in a day or two.
Hmm. What is your take on that? What do you your impressions?
That's the first time I read it.
Oh, really? So you just picked that
So,
one?
yeah,
Well, just in reading
yeah,
it, what are your
I picked
first
that one.
impressions of that? What this is a good moment to
Well,
first impress, get into a
yeah,
poem and discuss it. When you first read it,
yeah,
you're like, you know, it hits you suddenly, and you're like, what do you have to say about reading?
yeah. I just haven't. I thought I was thinking that was another one that I had picked out, and then I just looked at it. Well, I think that some fella, let's see, that have been to you had you remained. Someone didn't give her a chance.
Mm-hmm.
While waiting from a recurrent dream, cherish no less the certain stakes I gained, and walk from your memory's halls austere supreme, a ghost in marble of a
Hmm.
girl you knew,
Hmm.
who would have loved you in a day or two. So, I think it was somebody who didn't, well, it starts off, I think I should have loved you presently. So maybe in giving in earnest words, I flung in jest. So someone she got angry at,
Mm-hmm.
who lifted honest eyes for you to see. So it sounded like maybe she was playing games with someone, because
Right.
she talked about her wicked ways, spread like a chart, spread like a chart, my little wicked ways, and that had been to you had you remained. So she was playing games with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and he hauled tail,
What it sounds
as we
like.
say in Pomeria. He hauled tail. In Pomeria, we would say he
Colloquialisms.
hauled tail. Yeah, yeah. He
What I
hauled
gather
tail and ran.
right. What I gather from it, you know, she talks about in there, it seems like what she's saying is she was being frivolous. She wasn't taking his advances seriously or something, and he just kind of moved on, or she got upset or something, and she said, if you just given it a little time, you know, a day or two at the end of the poem, I would have loved you. Maybe it's about returning back to one's natural state in love. It could be about her marriage partner or her partner in general, or it could be a person that you know she was acquainted with who you know they didn't quite mesh completely, and maybe the circumstance just didn't allow a you know a full encounter of love, you know. And then we all face those things, and that's another case of self honesty where she kind of blames herself in a way. I think
Yeah,
she looks on it
yeah,
as
because
very self-reflective. It's and then in terms of
yeah,
memory, oh, go ahead.
cause she freely speaks here about she spread her chart on her chart her little wicked ways.
Right. She played a little game, or she screwed up some,
Yeah, she's her little wicked ways. Not
and
many
maybe
poets will confess
conniving,
her little wicked ways. Yeah,
or maybe she was being a
yeah,
little too playful with this man's heart or this woman's heart. I'm not sure what her sexuality was, but I think she's being playful and and not taking it seriously. And this person got very hurt, and she's looking at herself saying, if you just given a little more time, maybe I would have taken it. She's looking at it. It seems like, not taking the person's advances and is with the seriousness that she
yeah,
has, looking back on it. Maybe it's like after a day or two, she's looking back on it, and maybe somebody she was committed to, and it was just a one-time thing, or it happened, or it could be something that ruined a relationship. Never know. And we all go through those cycles of, once again, birth and rebirth. And learning, from ourselves what is good and bad in those terms.
right. And if I can find it, I have a poem somewhere
Hmm.
about one that I wrote about a fellow who as I say, hauled tail.
We have all of us have these people in our lives that they don't want to stick around long enough. They leave you, and you're just kind of like, what did I do? What, they don't tell you. They never tell you.
I know,
Just
I
like, I'm not
know.
interested anymore. I thought I was. I've heard so many stories. I can't even begin. From other people and myself included. I've had bad romances, as they say.
Yeah, this was an online romance that went bad.
Okay.
I thought it was going really well, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden he says, "Well, I'm up and moving to another city and never want to talk to you again."
Right. Yeah.
So it was really nice. Anyway, it's called Bloodroot. It's called Bloodroot.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to know what a bloodroot is, it's a bloodroot is a flower that grows in the mountains of Virginia, maybe North Carolina, and it blooms only once. It blooms in the dawn, and it unfurls, and it's a beautiful flower. It has a white blossom, and they call it bloodroot because if you break the stem, a uh, a liquid comes out that looks like blood, and the Native Americans used to use it as a kind of medicine,
Hmm.
but it blooms only once at dawn.
Hmm.
So the name of this is bloodroot. You were the holy surprise. I stood in wonder that gray slate afternoon. A gangly, shiny new life suffered the departure from the warm winter tomb in the mountain pasture, so old and grizzled with ice and snow, indifference frozen in the sod. Yet a calf pulled from its mother in showers of downy flake, tottering, then falling, then in all its gathering courage, to rise and rise despite the curses of the pasture, a surprise of life, defying an unfortunate roll of the dice, snake eyes hidden in the glass blown grass. I would have defied everything with you and risen with you again and again until it was no longer a surprise, but our rising as common as the sun's. Yet suddenly the surprise and wonder were gone, and the vestiges of early spring, with the vestiges of early spring. I cannot be indifferent, but my mountain pasture had blossomed after lying fallow for many years. Now the poet sits by her fire alone, with a flower in her hand. She had thought to go to some splendid place where the surprise of you awaited her there, but it was not to be, not in shapes of calves or dice or little warm houses tottering on the hill. I wait so still for someone to strike open the curtain, and it would all have been a dream were it not for the stain of the bloodroot bleeding early upon my hand.
Hmm. I think you said quite a bit there with that one image of bleeding early, in the sense that it was sort of the relationship was cut off at the beginning without it giving it its full bloom. So that's one of the images
Right.
I gather from that poem. Yeah, it's a very personal poem, but I think anybody can relate to that and read that and sense the beauty that's being, you know, compelled by the images and the scenario that you're presenting there. Uh, the very relaxed, almost pastoral feel, and then at the end, the bloodroot, and you're waiting for your loved one, and it's just not going to happen. It's not there. You're at the end of the end of the end, which is actually the very beginning in a way. So you kind of pull the two together, and then one image, and then the image of the flower, the bloodroot. That's what I think from that.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually happened to me, to see that calf being born. That was quite an interesting experience. I was a pastor in Southwest Virginia, and it was 20 minutes before an Ash Wednesday service, and an old farmer came to the church, went to church, and he said, "Preacher, you want to see a calf drop?" I said, "Sure." So I pulled on my boots, which I kept in my Jetta, and it was snowing and icing and everything, and went out to the pasture. And gosh, that old farmer, he put his arms up in that cow up to his shoulders, and he pulled and pulled on that calf and got it in position to come out. And that was a sight to see when that little calf dropped out on the ground. And it was just like I described it in there. It was really quite a holy surprise to have on Ash Wednesday, to see that little calf come out and totter along behind its mother, and it would fall down and get up again, and and see that new life, that brand new shiny messy life. And
Mm-hmm.
30 minutes later, I was in the church putting ash crosses on people's heads, saying, "From from dust you came, and to dust you shall return."
Mm.
So it's quite a
And
interesting.
coincidence. Yeah, that's a fascinating story to to put out there in that and put in that poem, especially. And we go back to life being messy, and it begins messy for all of us. It's like a mess in itself when you're born. It's like you're messy. But and throughout life, there's like these little side things that happen that get messy and mess things up, and you have to kind of clean up your own messes at some point. You can't have family, or you can people stick together, but at some point you kind of feel like you're in your own space. So at some point you
Yep, and
do what you can.
art itself, kind of poems themselves, kind of start messy, with
Yes.
messy
Yeah,
emotions,
absolutely.
and they have to kind of take shape, and they totter along, and
You never know what you're going
fall,
to
and
produce either. It's just comes
that's
out, and
right.
I don't know how many times I've just sat down and said I want to write something, and I write, and I don't even know what I'm writing half the time I'm writing it. And it comes out as
Right.
something, and you look at it and it makes perfect sense to you in that moment sometimes. And sometimes it's like I could
Right.
tweak it just a little bit here and there, or maybe a little bit more than a little bit.
Right.
So I think
Right.
we have maybe about 5 more minutes to talk a little bit, and continue our conversation. I think we're having had an excellent discussion about the messiness of life, and the difficulties of art, the difficulties of love, as well as Wilke, the German lyric poet, said. He had that phrase, the difficulties of love. And it's just not easy to live. And if you're out there and you're in sorrow right now, just bear with it. You keep writing your work, keep creating your art, whatever you're doing that's making you struggle, just bear with it and keep it going. Keep the flame alive. You're getting closer and closer to something beautiful if you can pass through this. So please keep living, everybody out there. And just consider that people out there care, even if you might not even know who cares about you. Who may, in the future, you may meet somebody who needs you. So stick with it, keep living. And to close the show, I think since we've been very serious for a while, I think we both should make a silly face and make people laugh. So do you want to do that?
Sure.
All right, I'll make mine first. Here
Ah, ah.
we are, being silly. This has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoy our content. We've had a great conversation today. Thank you, Melissa, for joining us at the last minute.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And subscribe to our channel. Everybody out there viewing, we're looking for 1 million subscribers. Tell your friends, family, coworkers, boss. If you talk to your boss, don't talk too loud to your boss. Just ask him nicely or her nice. And also, if you want to donate, anybody out there has a little extra cash, a little extra money to spare, we're looking for equipment, some new things. So please feel free, paypal.me/nyparrot. And that's through PayPal, which I do not endorse PayPal. I hope that we can find a better way at some point. But thank you very much for joining us again, Melissa. And we will close the show now.
Thank you for having me.
And keep the silly faces going. Thank you all for viewing. Good night and have a nice day.